So a couple of years ago, my pharmacy hired a new girl to work there. She's nothing special, just an ordinary kind of fat chick in her early 20s. And like a couple of weeks after I saw her there for the first time, I show up and it's really amazing what they allow people to do while working as a customer facing employee. So I show up and she's got fucking raccoon eyeliner. Like the stuff is thick. It's going across the back of her head. It's like sparkles and red and black. And then she shaves one side of her head, but not the entire side of her head. She leaves like a fucking Jew curl from here, like 8 inches long. And she's working like as a customer service, pharmacy technician. And you got to
For
wonder, like,
drugs.
how in the fuck? And then, like, a couple of weeks later, the eyeliner, like, I saw her again, and the eyeliner had completely toned down. And so I would imagine they told her, like, hey, tone it down. But a couple weeks ago, I went back, and she's got the haircut and the eyeliner again. So I don't know. I don't know what these companies are thinking, and why they're allowing people to do that kind of crazy
Imagine,
shit.
imagine what her father would think if he was still around.
I know, right? What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and with me this week we've got from Music City, America, the great Daniel Steele. Dan, pleasure as always. How are we doing?
Doing good.
We got an afternoon episode going, a weekend afternoon special.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go to these. I mean, I'm booking calls from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. these days, so
well,
it's gonna have to be some Saturdays.
That's fine. That works.
Yeah.
We've got coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Like I've almost got enough in the bank right now to make it happen, but I think this will be episode 181. So we've got episode 200 coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That'll be
fast.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
fun.
I'll wear a tinfoil hat for that one.
Absolutely. I was hoping I'm going to try and get Nolan, my other co-host, to get on with us, and see if we can manage doing the three of us. We'll see. Maybe not.
Well, that one you'll have to get him on and then let me know when he made it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've got it better this time. Like, and the last time it could have worked the last time, but I was being stubborn and I didn't want it to work the way that it was going to work. So essentially, like, it would have worked, but we wouldn't have been able to play videos off of my iPad. And now we're not doing that anyways. So I don't think it should be a problem, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
What's going on in the People's Republic of America?
A whole lot and not a whole lot. A lot of fucking socialism. Trump, has a terrible approval rating right now, and he's resulted to bribing people, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah, I had a point on this. I mean, I think I text you part of it. I'm totally brain dead on it right now. Oh, okay, yeah. So, obviously, you and I have been texting about this for a few weeks, and then Dave Smith and Robbie did an episode this week where they covered it definitely more articulately than I would have.
For sure. I was thinking the same thing, that they did it better than we would have done it, but we were planning on doing this that episode before they put it out.
Yeah. But one part that they didn't cover, and it's just like a new thought of how core central planning is to socialism, how it's in the core of it. And so in my opinion, I don't know what's happening now since USAID went down, but last year when USAID, it's not aid, was at full-fledged, I ran some calculations, and more than half of the people in the United States either got entitlements, worked directly for the government, worked for a company that had one single client, which was the government, or got money from a NGO. And all of our GDP increase came from government spending. So like that's undeniably socialism. And the thing is, you hear people say late stage capitalism because they don't want to admit how bad socialism is. Like,
Yeah.
no, this sucks. But everything, even before that, so even if the numbers weren't exactly over 50%, every major thing that's critical to the United States has a role in, and there's central planning involved. And it just progressively gets worse. So our airlines, our healthcare, do you know that we spend 5 times more on healthcare? Uh, just the government, not as a country. Like everything else, all that other money that we throw into healthcare, just the government spends 5 times more per head than the British government does for their socialized healthcare, and only 20% of the company or the 20% of the country gets healthcare from us. But so hospitals, insurance, prescription, oil. Um, thank God they got David Sachs as the czar of AI because the government isn't playing a central role in that yet. Energy production, dude. Energy. It's so hard. We need so much energy to do what we're about to do with robotics and
Mhm.
AI. We can get into AI a little bit later, but we need so much more energy than what we have. And as you know, we've covered over and over again, like we don't have enough linemen to service the infrastructure that we have.
Mhm.
So the companies are just going to space because it's easier to do electricity and data center processing in space because of socialism,
Mhm.
because our government has full hands in it. And I really never thought of that central planning angle and how important and crucial it is for socialism. But like in my opinion, we undeniably live in a socialist country.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the USAID thing, I've just kind of been assuming that it's whack-a-mole, that you get rid of one slush fund and somebody else opens up another one. Like these people they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and there's so much bloat and so much bullshit within the government that there's no way that any one group of people, small group of people, in fact, with Doge, is going to be able to find all of the bullshit that they've got hidden. And, they're just going to open up more of it. Like this is
Yeah.
what they want to do. They're, like I think USAID was a CIA slush fund for the most part. Like it's a way for them to launder money.
Well, that's
And
how it started. And then it became an activist slush
yeah.
fund, with climate and this and that.
Yeah, but I
And
think there's also a CIA angle of it with who
oh
they're
yeah,
giving
there's
money
definitely,
to
yeah,
is assets essentially
yeah.
around the world.
And yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. And I'm not arguing on behalf of the CIA and all the
Yeah.
overthrowing of governments, but it also spiraled out of control to where that money started working here for political benefit, probably through the CIA. But it was like, man, I hope we have badass fucking agents around the world that are looking out for America's interests. Like, I hope that we have the best dark money in the world. I really do. If we got to have a country and a government, I hope we're doing good with it. But we're obviously not. But what I didn't understand might have been Dave Smith again. Um, so like Soros, instead of just putting his money to work to get these radical DAs in
Mhm.
place and blah blah blah, he was basically seeding those NGOs with a relatively small amount of money, and then his puppets inside the government were funding those. So it wasn't just all Soros money. We were paying these NGOs to actively go against the will of the American people. It's not just Soros. I mean, it's obviously guided that way,
Mhm.
but it's all frustrating. Yeah, quite frequently during the pandemic, you would see like Gavin Newsom at uh, whatever French Laundry or
Yeah.
whatever the fuck that place was,
Great
and Rules for
restaurant.
Thee, but I'd love to go.
It's great.
Rules for
I've
Thee,
been
but
there. It's
not
awesome.
Rules for Thee, but not for me. So I'm just focused on becoming part of the me crowd.
Yeah. No, I'm with you,
I
man.
found that funny too.
It's we're in a bad situation. We're in a really bad situation. And the fact that like even, a conservative running the country is printing more money than the previous liberal. And
He's
I
not a he's not a conservative. He
that's
never
why
was.
that's why I gave it the old,
Oh, I
you
only
know.
saw one of those, so I
Oh.
didn't think he could plead the situation.
But,
So,
they're printing more money than the previous administration, and this is just gonna keep happening.
yeah.
And, like, this is something that, like, me and my buddy TJ talk about a lot is with he's big into Bitcoin and I'm a Bitcoiner too, so we're always talking about money printing and the state, and it's we've gotten to a point where it's like you're addicted to drugs, right? So when I first started, I'll use me as an example, not just any old drug addict, but like I was. When I first
Mhm.
started out on Oxycontins, I was like an eighth of a pill. And then within a couple months, I was a quarter of a pill, then a half, then a full pill. And a year later, 2 years later, I'm at 10, you know?
And
And
you're smoking them and
I'm
snorting them.
smoking
Yeah.
them. I went from eating them to smoking them or to snorting them to smoking them, and luckily I never got into the, intravenous, but that's the next step. And
Yeah.
it's because you get accustomed to what you're on and you want more. And this is the same thing that's going on with like all of those people that you were describing early on in the podcast, people that are on, benefits. Inflation goes up, we need a raise in our benefits. You've got government contractors that are used to making a ton of money on government contracts. Well, inflation goes up, so we need more money. And it's not just due to inflation, it's also due to greed. Like these people are so used to sucking the government teat that they just want more and feel that they deserve more. And the government's just willing to hand it out like candy. And like this is a big problem because, it's trillions here, trillions there, and pretty soon we're what are we at, like 38 trillion in debt right now? Trump's keeps saying that we're paying down the debt, but you can go to a debt tracker on the internet and watch the thing go up, every
Yeah.
minute of every day in like it's numbers that we can't even comprehend, right? So like when you start thinking about like the size of the sun, you look at the sun, it doesn't look like all that big, But you
Mhm.
start like looking at the numbers and it's like, holy shit, this thing is fucking huge. And when you like look at a picture of it compared to the earth, it's like, holy shit, like I don't even have a scale for this. Like I can't
Yeah.
even imagine how big it is because living on earth and dealing with, normal numbers that we deal with, like I don't even have a scale to imagine how big this thing actually is if I was like standing next to it or, in a spaceship next to it. And that's the same thing with our debt. Like this is such a massive fucking number that we don't even have a scale for how big it is.
Yeah, I was excited for Bitcoin, believed in it. But then when you watch the stock market and Bitcoin side by side, every time the stock market dips, Bitcoin dips. It's all just this. It's now a complicated financial instrument that's manipulated just like all the other markets. And then I think about, how what total societal collapse, probably lack of electricity, definitely lack of connectivity. How do I use a Bitcoin with no electricity or connectivity?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, as long as there's one node running, the network survives. So,
How do I
y
connect to the network?
yeah, it's a good point, and that's kind of the same thing with most financial instruments at this point. It's no different for the stock market or for paper gold or paper silver,
Yeah.
It's kind of this even with your bank account, it's kind of the same deal. So unless you want to hoard, physical gold and physical silver within your house, which is not really an option for me because of the way that I live. Like I have people living in my house and I have to leave from time to time. And
Yeah.
unless I want to bury it in my yard, which I've considered doing. It's easier for me and better for me. And also like so I don't know that I'm planning on living through the apocalypse. Like the government's done studies and I've looked into this. There was a study done at Plum Island, which is the place where they created Lyme's disease a couple of decades ago where they created it, but they did this DARPA Black Start project where they built a power grid, they built a couple of like substations and control stations. So they brought out all these different utility companies to kind of do a dry run of like what a cyber attack would look like. And a cyber attack compared to like an EMP is nothing. Like a cyber attack's fairly easy compared to that because you still have power essentially. It's
Yeah.
just not usable because of what's going on with your systems. So I mean, they the things that people don't really think about, it's like, oh, well, we've got great technology and smart people, so we can kind of figure this out. But like one of the things that they didn't anticipate was the weather. Like the weather got shitty. It was hard for them to communicate. They were having to communicate over radio and they just had a really hard time getting the grid back up and running again. And so like a black start is harder than you would think it would be because you would think, okay, well, as long as we can get the stations up and running again, like it'll be fine. But you have to find what's called like a crank path. So certain forms of energy are easier to develop a crank path on than others. So like wind and solar are almost impossible to develop a crank path. Nuclear gas are pretty hard as well. Like you really want like a geothermal or a hydroelectric plant, and you have to get all of these different plants on other sides of the all over the place to develop the same crank path and get up to 60 hertz. Because if you're not at 60 hertz, like the whole system is just kind of out of whack. So you've got to get
Yeah.
all these things up to 60 hertz and then you've got to, energize the grid again. And like, if you can imagine trying to work after an EMP where you don't even have communications. So you've got linemen at home trying to protect their families from, Mad Max land. And how do you get them out to the job site? How do you coordinate? How do you, how do you get this stuff done? We don't have extra infrastructure if an
No.
EMP goes off and everything goes to shit. Like people kind of just assume that the government's paying attention to this stuff, but it's like you would need extra transform like the transformers that we use at substations are fucking massive. They are huge. They're built in China. They require shipping, containers to bring them over here. Then they have to be moved by special trucks and trains and more special trucks and then set with cranes. Like it's a big fucking business. And you would have if like you really wanted to protect against that, you would have to keep like backup infrastructure underground, you know?
Yeah.
You would way underground. So then how are you going to get it out? How are you going to coordinate people to set it all? So like in a true like apocalyptic situation, almost everyone dies. Like within a couple of weeks, billions of people die. And after a couple of weeks, the power's never coming back on. It's just not going to happen. So getting back to like preparing for it, there's only so much you can do because unless you have the ideal situation where you've got like a bug out ranch, like kind of like you have, and you've got food and water and energy, like if you can, bury some solar panels or something like that, like you're kind of fucked. And then
So the
also,
solar's just done in an EMP.
yeah,
Yeah.
any electrical device in a big enough EMP is going to go to shit, and
So
you've
you
got to
you have to have solar infrastructure stored
underground.
in Faraday style.
Yep. And then also, like, all of the equipment within your house is gonna go to
Yeah.
shit, like your GFIs, because what happens is it's induction through magnetic current. So any electrical device that you've got within the house in a big enough EMP is gonna get energized, and if it's too much power, it just blows that circuit,
Can
essentially.
you Faraday like behind drywall?
I don't know. I'd have to look into that. That's an interesting idea. Um I don't know that that would work or not. I really don't. But like again, like how far away are you from your ranch or from your
Oh,
property?
I'm selling it.
Well, just for the sake of argument,
Er,
how far away are you?
so it's call it 70 miles as the crow flies from Nashville.
Okay, so if you're not out there during the EMP, you're not getting there. What are you gonna do? Walk out to your property while everybody's going Mad Max and going crazy? It's really tough. So like
Yeah.
unless you
No,
know,
I'm selling it and I'm buying something a half hour from the airport.
yeah, that's not a bad idea, you know. And even if you're the best prepper, if you've got a serious ranch and you've got a bug out spot and you're prepped for everything, if you're at your kid's basketball game a town over or two towns over, you're fucked. You're not getting
Yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I think I think I could get 50 miles.
Sure, maybe, but you might get robbed on the
No,
way
I
there.
won't.
You don't know really, right?
Good luck. Good luck.
Mhm. Anyways, I don't know where
um,
I was going with that, but we were talking about
yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, no,
Um,
well, yes. Because pretty much anything other than my ammo and seeds are worthless.
yeah, absolutely. You know, and aside
And
from like,
that's in EMP.
yeah,
But there was something that happened a couple, maybe 3, 4 weeks ago. I flew to California, and uh, AWS was out.
mm,
They went out twice, which happens. Like, it's fucking software,
yeah,
whatever. Something weird with DNS, which I don't understand DNS very well, but it was just like probably could have been avoided, but somebody fucked something up.
yeah.
Um, but like they couldn't scan my ID at the airport, and then I was all the way in California, and I like took an investor out for a beer, and we had to pay one beer at a time because they couldn't start tabs
Mm,
because somebody fucked up the DNS at
yeah,
AWS East.
yeah.
Um,
We're just our entire infrastructure is built on these systems that are required to work all the time. If they don't work, everything just goes to shit.
so I wonder, like Starlink. Let's not say EMP. Let's just say terrible hack.
Sure.
How if Starlink has systems where they could just spin up, and if the satellites lose communication with Earth, do they just go willy nilly, or do they have like a? I'm sure Elon's
I
thought of
mean,
this.
are the individual satellites getting hacked or is it the entire system getting hacked? Because if it's the
Well,
individual satellites that are up there right now, then cool, maybe we can just, activate a new set of them, launch them into orbit and kind of run off of a different operating system. Like you
oh
said,
no,
I'm
I'm
sure he's
thinking
thinking
about
of that.
something like where just Amazon gets taken down with
Yeah.
ransomware. Because almost if Amazon, let's say Amazon, Google, and Oracle just get ransomware hacked, terrible. You can't get on the internet, but you should be able to still get on Starlink. But if Starlink can't get on the internet, how does that work?
Yeah.
Because and I guess that kind of brings us into AI in
Sure.
general.
One
So
thing I did want to bring
oh
up
yeah,
just quickly
yeah,
on EMPs that I was thinking
yeah,
about that I should. Have you ever heard of the Carrington event?
no,
So it was an EMP in the late 1800s. And back then, like we didn't have a lot of infrastructure, like electrical infrastructure in North America, but we
yeah,
did have like not telegraph, whatever those Morse code things were, and it
yeah,
like wiped all of that shit out. And if we had a Carrington event today, it would wipe out like all of the electrical infrastructure in North America, essentially. And like that was just a couple hundred years ago. And I mean, I sent you the picture of Northern Lights that
yeah,
was in my, that I could see from my backyard the other night. That is because of a coronal mass ejection from the sun that is exciting the magnetosphere of the earth. And, a little bit bigger, and you get a really nasty light show that takes out all of the electrical infrastructure in the country.
yeah. I didn't send you my Northern Lights.
Yeah. Well, anyways, back to AI. And
I
one more
just sent
thing
it to
on
you.
like Bitcoin is I think that like right now there's a whole bunch of fucking people that are all fired up. Oh, it's going to 200,000 in the next week or this and that and blah blah blah. And like I don't think that it's a true gauge of inflation like most people like kind of assume. Like this thing is based on a cycle, you know. You have a halving every 4 years that, you know, essentially cuts the amount of Bitcoin you can mine per day in half. And it's more tied to energy prices than inflation or the stock market, as far as I'm concerned. You know, once
Yeah,
you cut that
which
in half, like your energy usage goes up and the price goes up. And after a couple years, the price goes back down again. And, you know, the
yeah.
same thing happened in the last cycle where everybody was, oh, the cycles are over. It's a super cycle. We're going to 250 or 300K. And then it went back down again. And then, you know, fear, greed index flipped and people aren't buying in. And now we're at that same point again that we were at 4 years ago where everybody's the cycles are over. It's going to a million. And that's not helpful. And first off, and just like calm down, people, maybe do some research instead of like treating it just like a financial engine like we've seen before. Anyways, AI.
well, I mean, so you hear, or I do. I read a lot of like tech Twitter. We're in a bubble. We're in a bubble. Blah blah blah. And um, two things can be true at once. So I think that OpenAI is fucked.
Yeah.
I think that they're trying to go wide, but they're not going deep anywhere because I think that, well, I know that I'll be able to set up uh, a system inside of a factory where we can keep all of their data in house. We can do inference, record their employees working and do inference and that would train a robot eventually and then do that training on the model for the robot for less than $200,000. I think that compute for the model. So first off, let me tell you what happened. We limit the amount of chips that China gets. So China's working on like just shitty old technology. And China said, okay, well, we have to be scrappy and we have to compete. So they forced all of their models to become open source. So these open source models are out there. They only have 500 data centers in China. There's like
Mhm.
10,000 or something here. These open source models get better. Then somebody else works on it, gets better. Somebody else works on it, gets better. Now we have models that are competitive with ChatGPT 5 that you can run on your PC for the most part. So small GPUs in your home, most will be it'll cost maybe 5 iPhones to have your own AI trained privately inside your house that doesn't get shared with everybody. That's just as competitive as anything that's on the market. So the need for compute, I believe, will still be there because we're getting into robotics. And when you start doing so heavy compute things like making a video, making an image, working on petabytes of data, things like that, we're going to need this infrastructure for. And then robots going out in the wild are going to create these petabytes of data that also need that work. So I don't think that there's a bubble in the chip and energy space, but I do think that there is a bubble in the sense that these large foundational models just are going to be pretty useless. I think that I could in 5 years make a device that sits at your house, doesn't go out to the cloud unless you want it to, and runs all of your AI that you'll ever need, except for making maybe videos and images, and maybe even that, because the Chinese are open sourcing all these models and they don't have the chips that we have. So they're just stuck between a rock and a hard place. They have more power than we have, but they have to make these super scrappy models that work on very small compute, and all of that's available to us. So what's OpenAI going to be good for? You know, they were promising AGI 2 years ago, and now they're making porn. Like
So
they're just trying everything.
let me see if I've kind of got this right. So there's energy constraints aren't going to be as big a deal because it's going to be more decentralized and your compute's going to be distributed across the grid. kind of evenly rather than centralized in an area where you need a ton of power to run this massive model?
Well, no, you're still gonna need that. Did I send you the VO video?
I don't
The
know.
robot that came out a couple weeks ago?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's
Oh, the Neo?
20,000.
Yeah.
Oh, Neo, sorry. It's a $20,000 robot. If you watch, they do a pretty good job of saying what's in autonomous mode and what's not.
Yeah.
And in the video, the only thing, two things that were in autonomous mode was the robot came over and got a cup and took it to the kitchen, and the robot opened the door. Every other function that it performed was somebody in a VR set moving for it. That's why you see some. I saw a tweet like, "Oh, I just spent $20,000 to emulate having a robot on or a roommate on ketamine,
Yeah.
just trying to open the dishwasher." But the reason why it's that way is they only have so many places where they can train this robot. They need to get it out into the wild. They need the video, and they're going to need to train. So
Yeah.
you might be able to do the inference inside the robot, but do the training. So we're going to need those big clusters of cloud, no doubt in my mind. But for the stuff that we do day to day, it can run in your house. It'll be running on your phone soon. You'll be able to have these models that are just like fast and can do most things.
Narrow. More
Yeah,
narrow than like
yeah,
ChatGPT.
yeah.
I think also
Um,
like Sam Altman, we might have discussed this on the last podcast. I can't remember. I got brain damage, so it's always a new podcast for me. Um, I think that he is going down for something. You know, I don't know necessarily that he'll go to jail, but it seems like people don't like him. It seems like, you know, the tech industry, the guys at the top are a pretty tight knit group of people that are willing to work with each other and kind of willing to help each other out and collaborate in certain ways. And it seems like he is not in that group. You know what I mean?
yeah. I have opinions.
Yeah.
Um, First off, Sam Altman um funded a CBDC.
Really?
Yeah. He's working on funding some sort of gene modification so that we can just make babies out of thin air.
Ugh.
Yeah, he's doing some stuff.
He's fucking weird. You know, just watching him, he's like he's like fucking Mark Zuckerberg level weird. You know?
Um, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, he
I just don't see that company surviving for a long period of time. It seems
well,
like
they're on their heels right now.
yeah.
There's a couple of court cases. One, A- Apple and ChatGPT, OpenAI did a deal where OpenAI was going to do their processing for Siri. It never really happened. A lot of that was Apple didn't want to send all that data to OpenAI, so they're kind of behind the curve versus Google because they needed to get a chip strong enough to run a model on a phone that was effective. So Siri got worse when they put out their AI
Yeah,
chip.
way worse.
Um, but now they're switching to Gemini. Apple is, but Elon sued uh, Apple and OpenAI for basically Grok was the most popular and most searched AI in the App Store, and they pushed Grok down to the second page.
Mhm.
Uh, ju- Apple and OpenAI said, "Hey, let's get this thrown out." And judge is like, "No, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to do hearings." So that's one. Number two, Elon funded OpenAI to start, and OpenAI is switching from a nonprofit to a for-profit, and there's some shady dealings going on there, or there have been shady dealings. That's all going to have to happen in court before OpenAI can go public, and that might just tank. That might get Altman out of OpenAI. Uh, what's interesting is OpenAI has a venture fund and Altman owns it. He owns no stock in OpenAI, but he owns the venture fund entirely, I guess, or he has limited partners, but he's the one who runs it. So he's been making all these bets and investing in all these companies. How do you unwind that if you unwind him out of OpenAI? If not, he could go to like he's put bets on nuclear, he's put bet on Reddit, like all of these different companies. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I thought for quite a while that Google was really shit in the bed and Apple was shitting the bed, not moving fast enough, not doing enough. If the speculation's correct, Gemini 3, which comes out next week, will be the most powerful, most popular model in the world. And now Apple is going to have that model on their devices. So it's like they kind of watched those people run, took a very pragmatic
Yeah.
approach, and can be the market leaders because they have distribution and economies of scale already.
Well, and that makes sense to me because, you know, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all of these companies do a lot of different shit. They've got their best engineers split off into different, programs, different projects. They're managing different aspects of their infrastructure. So, like, you've got ChatGPT or OpenAI that's doing one thing. They're working on AI. So all of their best people are working on the same thing. So when they come out and kind of like shock the world in a way when, ChatGPT comes out and it's able to, you know, kind of be the first AI that's capable of really doing something, the other companies were kind of on their heels because they were, distributed amongst so many different aspects of their companies. And I would imagine in the time that that's happened, they've thrown a lot more money and a lot more engineers at this problem, and they're going to be able to solve it. They're just a little bit behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And they have the money to wait it out.
Yeah.
And um, it's not like they lost their whole business in this whole time because there was
Oh,
a risk that they just lost their business. Um, one sleeper that nobody talks about is IBM.
yeah. They've got
IBM,
that. They've got that True North chip that they've been working on.
they have that True North chip. They bought Red Hat, which was a like a version of Linux, and they have a really big open source community. So the as more open source models get put out and they're able to effectively run these open source models, they might win consumer. That's a long shot. I wouldn't put all my money on it, but there's a like IBM, that company's done everything, international business machines forever, and there's still like 500,000 people organization. Um, and they have money, and they're just taking a completely different approach. So it's going to be interesting. I know quite a few people at IBM that are really really smart, and they could win some of these bets, which nobody would ever think IBM winning in this race at all.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's so many different like tech companies out there that people aren't familiar with. There's one here in Boise. Can't remember what it's called. Anyways, it's I'll find it after the podcast because I can't remember the name of it. But it's like a really big fucking company that kind of is just based out of here. And I don't
Yep.
really know what they do, but like they've got massive campuses and they've kind of funded our local colleges and have their training centers and all that are dealt with our local college. And it's like there could be a company out there that's working on this shit that makes a breakthrough any day at this point that we are not familiar with. Maybe you would be familiar with, but we as like the general public who's not really paying close attention to this shit would be like, what company is that? I've never heard of that before. Then you look into them and it's like, oh, well, this is a multi-billion-dollar company and they've got
Yeah.
the people and the money and the infrastructure to build this thing. So yeah, makes sense. And I could imagine that like I know I've said this on the podcast before, but typically like major breakthroughs aren't made by existing companies. They're made by upstarts, startups that are looking to do things streamlined in a different way with smart fucking people and are like on a true mission, head down, grinding it out rather than these big corporate. I mean, how many meetings do you think have to take place at a company like Apple or Microsoft or Google for to change just one thing? You've got to have
Dude,
meeting about the meeting before you
I
change just a little bit of the thing.
I don't want to say the name of the company, but they're a massive, Fortune 100. that deals in software, and I was talking to somebody that reports to the CEO of this company, and he said in order for them to to connect data inside of their organization and build the pipes to do it, it takes 90 days. It takes my company maybe a day,
Yeah.
maybe two, to route data through an API. 90 days, and it's all meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, they're bloated. They're
So
and that's
bloated.
why like Elon was able to fix Twitter so quick is because he's a streamlined guys. We're not going to mess around with meetings about meetings about meetings,
Yeah.
Like we're going to get this shit done. We're going to get rid of all of these people that are standing in the way of progress and, we're going to hammer it out. And if you're not capable of doing that, well, then you're going to have to find a new job because we want people who are willing to work around here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Speaking of, go ahead.
well, number one, Twitter's not fixed yet.
No, it's not, but
So
it's compared to what it was.
yeah, it's getting close. So they're still on the Twitter algorithm, and they started like peeling back pieces of the onion. And what they found was every time you pull it back, it creates this whole new set of bugs because they're trying to get over to a Grok based algorithm, which I think they'll do. I'm sure they're going to be able to do it, but it's like I every once in a while I'll log into Twitter and it looks like Twitter in 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
just like blue haired woke people just and I'm like I have screens of this post isn't relevant, this post isn't relevant, but it's a really interesting problem to solve, and I think they're doing a good job of getting it fixed. But man, they
Yeah.
have some really bad fucking days.
I know I brought this up early after the Twitter buyout, but like even it was even like a year after Elon owned the company. When I would go to search on Twitter, I would
Yeah,
type in E. And the first thing that should come up when you type in E is Elon Musk's profile. He's got the most followers. It's his platform. Like that should be the first fucking thing that comes up. And I would have to type in ELO before
yeah,
it would pop up with Elon because they're operating on the old algorithm where, they didn't want people going to Elon's page because he was saying things that really didn't line up with what Twitter was all about. So like
yeah.
it took them a long time to figure that out. And I don't even know how many gremlins are in the system like that it's going to take forever to find out. And you don't want to completely redo the entire thing. Like that would be a pain
So
in the
that's
ass.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
I
So
mean, you wouldn't want to
what
redo it all at once. You have to do it little by little. Otherwise,
yeah,
the thing's just not going to function well, and you're
yeah.
going to lose all of your base of followers, and you're going to lose your base of the people using the platform if you were just to upend the entire thing all at once.
Yeah, I'm sure that software is much more complex than I understand.
Oh yeah,
Um, but it seems to me about the way that I would approach it as opposed to like trying to roll back the Twitter things. Because you have your input, which is the tweet or the post or whatever, and then your output is your algorithm and how it's organized and that sort of thing. I would start running both of them. So I would have Grok, like a Grok version and then the old version. So instead of trying to change the old version, I would just have
parallel.
it go through Grok, and it would be pretty bad probably to start. But I would fix that and then just roll the output, which is what you see in the interface, out slowly to people so that you get people using it. Um, but fuck, I'm not Elon Musk,
Yeah,
so
I would say
there's got
that
to be a
it's
reason why they didn't go that way.
for sure, and I would say that it's 80% better than it
Yeah.
was before he bought it. Like easily
Oh yeah.
80% better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do think that like one of the more annoying things about it is like I see the same post over and over and over again because you've got all these farmers
That's gotten better for me.
really because you've got all
Yeah.
these farmers that as soon as something comes out, like you've got probably 100 different people just with politics alone that are
At
tweeting
least.
the exact same thing with the exact
Just
same
in.
story.
Now.
Just in,
Breaking news.
breaking,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get that same, and you see it over and over and over again, and it drives me nuts because it's like I already saw it once. Like, just show it to me once, and I don't
Yeah.
need to see it again. Give me something different. And like I get a lot of financial stuff. I get a lot of Bitcoin stuff. I get a lot of political stuff, but for the most part, like a lot of it is the same thing, just regurgitated over and over and over again. And I wish it would give me a little bit more variety.
Dude, Bitcoin Twitter's the worst,
Oh,
the
it's
biggest
horrible.
circle jerk. And then you get like these sixes that just talk to nerds, so then they become thought leaders. Like,
Yeah.
no, you're like fucking 22 years old and you haven't even paid for your own car payment. Don't
Yeah.
tell me about financial markets,
Yeah. And dude,
Jennifer.
and I still think that it was a mistake to like
Let women vote.
so much so many characters on X that they have now. Like, god, dude, there's stuff where it's like, oh, this looks interesting, and then you click show more and it's like a fucking article, and it's like, if give me a boiled down version of it and then link me to wherever you
Yeah.
wrote your fucking article. Like, I just want to see a little bit of it, you know? Like my buddy all the time, he's always like, he's all in on Bitcoin. He's a Bitcoin maximalist, and he sends me these posts on X that are just fucking thousands of words, you know? And I'm like, why are you wasting your time
Yeah.
reading this stuff? And you can pump it into Grok and say, give me a bullet point breakdown of what this post
Oh,
says.
you can just hit Grok on the
Yeah.
corner and it just
And
tells you.
it's just a very easy thing that is just
Yeah.
completely overblown and just blah 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 blah, and all of it basically breaks down to buy Bitcoin. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all they're really saying is buy Bitcoin, and then here's the reasons why you should buy Bitcoin. So I always tell them, like, why do you waste your time reading this shit? You're a maxi already. Like, it's just
Yeah.
a waste of your fucking time.
Yeah, I got this one woman sent me a DM on LinkedIn asking for advice about her company, and it was just like 4 screen scrolls through,
Yeah.
and I just responded, I said, "Congratulations," or "I'm sorry about what happened to you, but I can't read this."
Yeah. TLDR, man. Just give me
Yeah.
something boiled down. It's crazy. So here's one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I'm sure you saw this because you're paying attention to all of this AI shit. But did you see that Elon said that we might not have prisons soon? And if you get in trouble, you're just gonna have a robot follow you around?
He, uh he has a very bright-eyed view of the world.
Yeah. I don't like
Eh,
that.
I mean, if, like, he was in charge of it, I'd be fine. You know, or, like, if there was some sort of way to control it, fine. But no, like, this is just it's just more taking away of rights. Like, I think that he was just trying to be visionary there. Like, that's never fucking happening.
Well, I mean, could you imagine if some fucking immigrant raped your wife and then you got to see him walking around town and going to restaurants and having a fucking good time, just have some robot following him around? Like, fuck that, you know? And like, not to say that our prison system is great, because it's a fucking disaster and there's far too many people in prison that shouldn't be there for nonviolent crimes. And like, don't get me wrong that I'm just like one of these people that thinks that everybody belongs in prison, because I think there's a decent amount of people in this country that are in prison that shouldn't be there, where something like this could work. But there's also a lot of people walking the streets right now that absolutely should be in prison and aren't. Like, I watch a lot of these pred catch videos, and dude, the same, like Alex Rosen will catch the same guy 3 times within a year, and they're still out on the streets.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine an immigrant my wife being in a situation where she would get raped by an immigrant.
Yeah, I would imagine
Yeah.
so too, but, you know.
She stays strapped too.
Yeah, good, but you get what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Like, if there was if some fucking horrific crime happened to somebody that you cared
Yeah.
about, and then you had to go out and see that person at the same concert that you're at, you'd be like, "Fuck this shit. Like, I'm gonna bury this person in my backyard." But you can't
Yeah.
because the robot's watching.
Yeah. Just unplug it.
I do think the his medical intervention idea is cool. Like you're going to be able to have a robot that's capable of doing surgeries and medical procedures that a typical human doctor will. And he's totally right. Like that, there's only a handful of really great doctors out there.
Yeah.
Like I've learned this better than anybody going through what I've been through in the years. And like, dude, my hand surgeons were really good. Like the the burn doctors that I had, like, I remember this is funny because, this was in 2015 where things hadn't got quite so crazy as they were, and, like, there was 2 male hand surgeons and 1 female hand surgeon, and I remember, like, asking a nurse, like, "Hey," like, they gave me the option, they're like, "You can pick a surgeon, or we can just give you who's ever available," and I remember asking a nurse, like, "If you were in my situation, which one would you choose?" And they were like, "Honestly," and I asked this to a bunch of the nurses, they were like, "Honestly, like, I would be fine with any of the 3 working on me, like, I think they're all really good, like, at what they do. They have different bedside manners, but, like, aside from that, they're all really good. If I was going into it now, I'd be like, "I want the man. Like, give me the
Yeah.
man."
Oh man. Should I add something? So no, that's very possible and can happen in our lifetime. But that's what we need all these data centers and all this power for.
Yeah.
Is that not to tell you which finger to use to push your hemorrhoid back in? You know,
It's the middle. It's always the middle. It's
it's
the
always the
longest.
middle. Or whatever, like all the mundane shit. Like
Yeah.
I fermented some things today. Like I don't need OpenAI for that.
Yeah. I've been using it a lot lately. I've been using Grok and ChatGPT lately. Like I've been working on this sci-fi book, and I don't use it for like the actual writing of the book. What I do with it is like, okay, I have like a prompt that explains like what the book is about, the key points, like the technologies that are being used in it. And I go, okay, give me some ideas for like what this technology could be used for, and then it'll give me a list of stuff and I'll go, no, no, no. Oh, that's interesting. And then I'll kind of dig into that. Okay, if we were going to use this for that, like how would this work? And it's still crazy. Like ChatGPT is just ridiculous. Like it knows that this is a sci-fi book that's set in the future with technology that's like not even available today, right? Like not even
Yeah.
close. Like we're talking like serious sci-fi shit. And I a couple weeks ago I asked it like, "Hey, here's the prompt for the book. Like give me some ideas for like an interesting and unique EMP that would wipe out the power on the entire planet, even small devices like phones and, stuff that's underground like." And it tells me, "I'm sorry, I can't help you build a weapon." And it's like, are you fucking serious? Like, I'm an amputee sitting in my house writing a sci-fi book. This technology doesn't even exist. And
Yeah.
it still just won't do it. Grok had no problem doing it because it was not stupid enough to, grasp that this is a sci-fi book. And even if you're giving me ideas for this, none of it can be built because it's all requires technology that doesn't exist and won't exist for a very, very long time, if ever,
Have you tried the projects on ChatGPT?
No, what's that?
So you can create a project, you can add files like your training prompt, that sort of thing. Um, and then everything that you're working on in that project lives there. So
That'd be nice.
you can edit the instructions so that you never have to type that long prompt out again. It's just always in the context.
I just have the prompt saved so I can
Yeah.
like copy and paste it. But no, that would be great because it's dude, I hate finding because I have like different chats that I have with it about different aspects of it.
Yeah.
Like this is about the wormhole. This is about the nanites. This is about the ancient, mythological figures that are gonna be, featured in it. This one's about, I just have them separated so it's kind of not so
Do you
muddled.
use the desktop app?
No, I use my iPad.
Oh, but their app, not the web,
Yeah,
right?
I use the app.
Yeah. Yeah, I just sent you a screenshot. You can just do projects. It's right under the GPTs.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
like I have one that's just the training or tuning or whatever is like, I wrote this. I like how I wrote it. Just tell me what's grammatically incorrect. Start by just saying the beginning of the sentence and then tell me what you would change. I have one that's just Spanish. So whenever I talk to my maid, I type out in English. I send her a text in Spanish. She replies in Spanish. And I just paste it instead of saying, "Hey, please translate this for me."
That's cool.
Um,
I didn't know it had that, but I'm glad that I do now because that'll make it a
yeah,
lot easier for me.
yeah. And I mean, the maid instance is just great because, like, I bet it makes her feel good that somebody's at least trying to talk to her in her language, and
Yeah.
super sweet lady. And it just makes communicating way easier because, like, there's a big gap in that language where words mean different things. But
Yeah. And English is such a fucking hard language to learn,
such a weird
you
language.
know.
All right,
I
I got to
mean,
get running,
all
buddy.
right, dude. Sounds good. It was a pleasure as always, and
Yep,
we'll do this again in the next week, 2, 3. Who
yep,
knows? Doesn't matter.
yeah.
But we'll
Two
be back.
weekends. All right, see you, buddy.
See ya later.